The awakening of Earth. The universe had always been quiet, vast, endless, and silent. For centuries, humanity had lived in peace, isolated on their small blue planet. Earth was just another speck in the vast ocean of stars, forgotten by most of the galaxy. But that was about to change. It started with a strange signal. It was weak at first, almost like static, lost in the cosmic sea. But then it grew stronger, clearer. It was a message from the stars, and it was aimed at Earth in a small underground facility. Deep within the United Nations Command Center, Dr. Lena West sat hunched over a bank of monitors. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, adjusting the settings, trying to get a better read on the signal. She had been working on this for months, trying to decode strange signals coming from deep space. At first, they had thought it was just background noise, but now it was different. This was something new. Come on, Lena muttered, her eyes scanning the data. Then it happened. The signal clicked. It was a language not from Earth. Her heart raced as she decoded the first few words. "We have found you. Prepare for contact." Lena leaned back in her chair, stunned. It was real. Aliens had found Earth, and they were coming at that very moment. A message was sent to every nation on Earth. The message was short, clear, and frightening. An alien fleet is on its way. Prepare for the unknown. Across the globe, panic spread. Governments scrambled to prepare. The world's armies, air forces, and navies were put on high alert. No one knew who these aliens were or what they wanted. All they knew was that something was coming, and it wasn't friendly. The first ship appeared in Earth's atmosphere 2 weeks later. It was huge, towering above the tallest skyscrapers, blocking out the sun as it hovered ominously above the Pacific Ocean. Its surface was smooth, black, and reflected the sky in strange ways. It was a ship like nothing humanity had ever seen. The world watched in fear as it slowly descended. Lena West stood with the UN officials in the command center, staring at the live feed. "What do we do now?" one of the generals asked. His voice was strained, full of fear. "We wait," Lena replied, her voice steady but filled with uncertainty. "We wait and hope they're here for peace." But deep inside, she knew the truth. Earth was unprepared. It had always been unprepared. Humanity had never faced anything like this before. The alien ship's landing was almost silent. A small tremor vibrating the ground as it touched down on the surface of the ocean. No one moved, no one spoke. The silence was deafening. Then, as if on command, a hatch on the ship's underside opened. A strange figure emerged. It was tall, humanoid, but unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Its skin was a deep shade of purple, its eyes were too large for its face, and it moved with an unsettling grace. The alien stepped down onto the water, its feet barely touching the surface, leaving ripples in its wake. The world held its breath. Then the alien spoke. It was not in English. It wasn't in any language humanity had ever heard. But somehow, it made sense. A voice, deep and cold, echoed inside the minds of every person on Earth. "We are the Zarkar. You are weak. You will surrender." The words hit Earth like a punch. Fear spread across every nation. A species from beyond the stars had come, and they were demanding humanity's surrender. No one knew how to respond. How could you fight something so advanced, so powerful? Lena's mind raced. "We can't just give up. We have to fight back," she thought. But her voice was drowned out by the chaos in the room. In every capital city, the leaders of Earth gathered. The global response was unanimous. Humanity would not bow to these invaders. They had to act. The Zarkar had made a grave mistake. They underestimated Earth's determination. Across the world, soldiers began to mobilize. Fighters filled the skies. Ships moved into position. The world's leaders made one thing clear. Earth would not surrender, not without a fight. The Zarkar, seemingly unfazed by the display of force, lifted a hand. The ground around them rumbled, and suddenly the skies lit up with flashes of energy. The alien ship unleashed a barrage of destructive beams, crashing down onto Earth's military forces. But something strange happened. The beams didn't hit their targets. Earth's defense systems, previously thought to be outdated, somehow blocked. The attacks, the world gasped. The humans weren't as defenseless as they seemed. They had a secret. Humanity had been preparing for the unknown for years. And they had developed new weapons and technology that the Zarkar hadn't anticipated. Impossible. The alien leader muttered. But Earth's soldiers weren't finished. With new courage, humanity fought back, sending waves of aircraft and ground forces towards the alien ship. It was only the beginning. Earth had awakened, and the fight for survival had just begun. The humans who fought back. The sound of the first explosion echoed through the command center. It wasn't just a blast, it was a declaration. Earth had struck back. For the first time in history, humans stood against an alien species with everything they had, in the heart of Earth's capital cities, the streets filled with soldiers, pilots, and scientists, all preparing for the battle of their lives. The Zarkar might have underestimated humanity, but Earth's fighters were determined to show the galaxy that they were not as weak as they seemed. Dr. Lena West stood on the command deck of the United Nations flagship, watching as the fleet prepared to launch. Thousands of ships filled the space above Earth, ready to defend their home. She clenched her fists, feeling the weight of the moment. This wasn't just about saving the planet. It was about proving humanity's place in the universe. We've never fought anything like this before, General Carter said, his voice grave as he stared at the massive alien ships hovering above Earth. The Zarkar fleet was enormous, thousands of warships, each one bristling with technology that far surpassed humanity's weapons. We fought for survival before, Lena replied, her voice steady. We'll fight again. It was a dangerous game, but humanity had no choice. The Zarkar had made the first move, and now it was time to show them that Earth's warriors wouldn't just roll over. They would fight back, and they would fight hard as the human fleets launched into space. Earth's military quickly learned that their weapons were not enough to defeat the Zarkar's advanced technology. The alien ships were armed with energy shields that blocked every shot. Their weapons tore through Earth's defenses with ease. But humanity was not without its strengths. In the dark corners of Earth's scientific community, a secret project had been underway for years, one that could turn the tide of the war. A weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was the product of human ingenuity, born from desperation, and now it was ready, in a hidden lab. Lena and her team activated the weapon. It was a massive machine, built from a combination of reverse-engineered alien technology and Earth's own advancements. Its core pulsed with energy, and a faint hum vibrated through the air as it powered up. This is our best shot, Lena said, watching the machine's systems come online. If it works, it could turn the tide of this war. At the same time, on Earth's front lines, A new strategy was unfolding. The humans had learned from the first assault the Zarkar were stronger, but they weren't invincible. The key to victory wasn't brute force, it was precision. Earth's forces began using hit-and-run tactics, striking at weak points in the Zarkar's massive fleet. Fighter jets zipped through the sky, weaving through alien fire. Ground forces planted explosive charges on the Zarkar ships, disrupting their energy systems and causing chaos in the alien ranks. Humans didn't fight like the Zarkar. They didn't have the same strength, but they had something far more dangerous: unpredictability. The Zarkar began to realize they had made a grave mistake. Their confidence in their superiority was shattered by humanity's resilience. Earth's soldiers weren't just surviving, they were adapting, learning, and fighting back with more determination than they'd ever known. But the real shock came when Earth unleashed the secret weapon. The device, built to harness the energy of the Zarkar's own weapons, activated with a pulse of light. It was a weapon unlike anything the aliens had ever encountered. A beam of energy shot out, not from Earth's fleet, but from deep in the heart of the planet, cutting through the Zarkar's shields like they were made of paper. Impossible. The alien commander screamed as their forces faltered. This should not be possible, but it was happening. Humanity's ingenuity had created something the Zarkar could not stop. For the first time in the war, the balance of power shifted. The Zarkar ships began to fall, one by one, their once unstoppable force crumbling in the face of humanity's unexpected resilience. Earth's fleet, emboldened by the success, launched a full-scale assault. The Zarkar forces, now disoriented and outmatched, were forced to retreat, but the war was far from over. Humanity had proven that they could stand against the galaxy's most feared species, but the Zarkar were only one of many as the battle raged on. Lena stood on the bridge of the flagship, looking at the sky where Earth's fate was still being decided. The war was far from won, but humanity had just sent a message to the entire universe. Earth was no longer the weak, isolated planet it once was. It was a force to be reckoned with. "They came to conquer us," Lena said, her voice filled with determination, "but they forgot one thing. Humanity never gives up. Not now, not ever." In the distance, the Zarkar fleet regrouped, but they weren't just looking at Earth anymore. They were looking at the rising power of humanity, and they knew, deep down, that they had made a mistake. This wasn't just a war for Earth's survival. It was a war that would define humanity's place in the universe. Asterisk. The rise of humanity's war machine. The Earth was still scarred. Burned cities, shattered landscapes, and broken satellites floated silently in orbit. But behind all the destruction, something powerful was growing. A force the galaxy didn't expect. A force that had just survived its first true war. Humanity, after their shocking victory against the Zarkar. The world didn't fall into fear, it united. Borders faded. Flags were lowered. For the first time in history, Earth's governments came together. No longer separate nations. They formed the United Terran Command. Their goal was simple: survive, advance, fight back. In underground labs, scientists worked day and night. Alien wreckage was taken apart. Zarkar tech was studied, reshaped, improved. In less than a year, humanity went from flying fighter jets to piloting interstellar warships. The speed of growth shocked even the most advanced species in the galaxy. Earth built its first true war. Fleet Project Iron Fang. Each ship was armed with new plasma cannons, stealth armor, and gravity-based shields. Some were small and fast, like wasps. Others were massive, slow, and deadly, like floating cities of steel. The biggest of them all was the HTS Vindicator human-made dreadnought, built entirely from salvaged alien tech. It carried over 12,000 troops and had enough firepower to level a moon. It became a symbol across the stars. Aliens who once laughed at Earth now whispered its name in fear. But Earth wasn't just preparing for defense anymore. They were preparing to attack. The Zarkar weren't gone. They had only retreated. And in the dark corners of the galaxy, they were building something worse, something hidden, massive, and final. A new weapon that could erase Earth in a single strike. The United Terran Command knew they couldn't wait. They had to strike first. Inside Earth's orbital station, General Elias Munro paced across the war room floor. His face was lined with age, but his eyes were sharp, full of fire. "They think we're not ready," he said, looking at the holographic map showing deep space Sarkar territory. "They think we're still the frightened planet they tried to conquer." He turned to his officers. "They're wrong." He pointed to a star cluster labeled Sector K-17. "This is where we hit them, hard. We don't wait for them to bring the war again. We take it to their doorstep." The mission was dangerous. No human ship had ever flown that far beyond known space. The fleet would have to travel through wormholes, face ambushes, and survive alone. But the crew was ready. They weren't just soldiers. They were survivors of the first invasion. And now, they were humanity's sword. As the fleet prepared to launch, Lena West stood on the bridge of the Vindicator. She had been promoted, no longer a scientist behind a desk. Now she wore the commander's badge on her chest. She stared out at the stars, thinking of all they had lost, and all they were about to fight for. A voice came over the intercom. "All ships ready, Commander." She didn't hesitate. "Launch." The fleet jumped into hyperspace. In seconds, they vanished from Earth's orbit. Hours later, they emerged in a dead part of the galaxy. No light, no signals, nothing, until the sky lit up. Zarkar. Ships, hundreds of them. They had been waiting, an ambush. The trap was set, but Earth had come prepared. "Shields up," Lena shouted. "Lock weapons. This is what we trained for." The battle began. It was chaos. Zarkar. Ships moved like shadows, their weapons cutting through space like fire. But Earth's war machine didn't crumble. It roared. Human ships weaved through enemy lines. AI systems targeted weak points. Drones swarmed Zarkar engines. Earth's soldiers weren't just brave, they were precise, brutal, focused, in the middle of the battle. The Vindicator broke through the enemy's front line and fired its main cannon. A pulse of energy ripped across the battlefield, destroying 3 warships instantly. The Zarkar panicked. They had expected fear. They found fury after hours of brutal combat. The last Zarkar ship fled. The sky was silent again. Inside the command room, Lena collapsed into her seat, her face drenched in sweat. But she was smiling. They had won. Again. The crew around her cheered. Messages from Earth came pouring in. The galaxy had watched the battle live, and now, the entire universe knew, humanity was no longer defending itself. It was rising from ashes, from pain. From the edge of extinction, it had become something new, not a survivor, not a victim, but a warrior force. No one could ignore. The question wasn't if Earth would survive now. The question was, who could stop them? Humanity's heart of galaxy had never seen a species rise so fast. After Earth's victory at Sector K-17, The message was clear. Humanity was no longer a small, isolated planet. It was a force to be reckoned with. The universe now feared the heart of steel that beat within humanity's chest. On Earth, celebrations broke out. News outlets broadcasted the victory, and people cheered in the streets. But General Elias Monroe wasn't celebrating. Lena West wasn't either. They knew this was only the beginning. The Zarkar had been beaten, yes, but more threats were rising from the shadows. The United Terran Command had made one thing clear to the galaxy: humanity was not a species to be underestimated. The moment Earth's fleets returned from their battle with the Zarkar, they began their next mission. No longer just defending Earth, the United Terran Command prepared for expansion. A new order had emerged in the galaxy, and humanity had to seize it. Command, we've detected multiple alien fleets in the Aldera system, Lena said, her voice steady as she looked at the holographic map. They've united under a single banner. They think they can take back their power. General Monroe, who would become one of humanity's most revered leaders, nodded. They will try, but they don't know what they're up against. Prepare for full mobilization. We are not going to wait for them to come to us again. The Terran Armada was ready. The ships were sleek, armored, and fast. Each one carried the new, devastating weapons humanity had developed after their first war. They weren't going to wait for the enemy to strike, they were going to take the fight. To them, the Vindicator led the fleet as it traveled across the stars. Earth's ships glided through space, silent and deadly. No one could predict where they would strike next, and no one dared challenge them. But as humanity's war machines surged forward, a new enemy had taken notice. The Kreth Dominion, a coalition of multiple alien species that had once ruled the galaxy, saw Earth as a threat to their power. They had seen what happened in Sector K-17, and they knew they couldn't allow humanity to rise any further. We must destroy Earth before they grow any stronger, the Kreth Emperor said in his war room, his voice a low growl. Send everything we have. Use their fear against them. The Kreth Dominion sent their best fleet to face humanity. They knew the Terran forces were fierce, but they thought the Kreth's overwhelming numbers would crush them. It was a miscalculation that would cost them dearly. The battle began near the Aldera system, where humanity's fleet faced off against the Kreth's massive warships. The Kreth were known for their brute force, and their ships were larger than any humanity had ever seen. Their weapons were powerful, and their soldiers were brutal. But humanity was not just fighting with weapons, they were fighting with heart. The Kreth fleets moved in, confident that their numbers would overwhelm the Terran forces, but as the battle unfolded, they found themselves losing ground. Humanity fought with the precision and the will to win that no one had expected. Their tactics were simple but effective: strike fast, hit hard, and disappear before the enemy could retaliate. On the Vindicator, Lena stared at the battle map, her mind racing. We've got them on the run. Now we push forward, break their front line. The order was given, and the Terran fleet surged forward. The Kreth had underestimated Earth's ability to adapt. The Terran ships surrounded the Kreth flagship, cutting off its escape route. The Kreth Emperor screamed in fury, watching as his flagship was disabled by a well-placed blast from the Vindicator's main cannon. The rest of his fleet scattered, retreating in a panic. Lena smiled as the Kreth flagship fell silent, its lights dimming as it drifted into space. Earth had just taken another victory, and the galaxy was now watching in awe. But this victory wasn't just about the ships or the weapons. It was about the spirit of humanity about a species that had once been seen as weak, now standing tall and showing that it was stronger than anyone had ever realized. On the bridge of the Vindicator, General Monroe stood, looking out into the vastness of space. "This is our galaxy now," he said, his voice calm but filled with authority. "We fought for it, and no one is going to take it from us." In the aftermath of the battle, the galaxy began to understand what humanity had become. Earth had fought not just for survival, but for the chance to define its future. And the rest of the universe had no choice but to watch as humanity's heart of steel burned brighter with each victory. But the war wasn't over. The Kreth Dominion had retreated, but their allies were already preparing their own armies. There were many in the galaxy who would test humanity's resolve to see if they could truly be the most feared force in the universe. The answer, however, was clear. Humanity was ready. The universe shakes. The stars had never looked so empty. At least, that's how it seemed to Earth's leaders after their victory over the Kreth Dominion. The Terran fleet had crushed the aliens' strongest forces, forcing the Kreth to retreat into their distant, forgotten territories. But as the dust settled, the truth became clear. Humanity's rise had set off a chain reaction. The entire universe had begun to shift. In the grand halls of the Galactic Senate, leaders from the galaxies, most powerful species gathered. For centuries, they had controlled the universe with ease until Earth came along. They had watched as humanity's raw, brutal force shattered the Kreth's supremacy. And now they feared what might come next. The Thraxi Union, a technologically advanced empire known for their cold, calculating strategies, was the first to act. "The Terrans are too unpredictable," said High Chancellor Vaughn, his voice low and calculating. "They cannot be allowed to grow any further." The Zelthor Dominion, a vast empire of insect-like creatures, hissed in agreement. "We should strike before they can become a true threat." In the center of the room, the Ithrian Council, known for their ancient wisdom and pacifist tendencies, remained silent. But their leader, Grand Elder Morlan, spoke at last. "If we attack them, we may unleash something even more dangerous. The Terrans are already united. We would be making the same mistake the Kreth made." But it was too late. The decision had already been made. The galaxy's old powers, united by fear and anger, prepared to launch a war to subdue humanity. Earth's victories had ignited a fire in every empire, each species too proud to let a fledgling civilization steal their dominance. Meanwhile, on Earth, the Terran command was aware of the gathering storm. General Monroe had seen the sign: fleets moving into position, strange communications intercepted, and a constant influx of new weapon designs. Earth wasn't just facing one enemy anymore. It was facing every power in the galaxy. On the Vindicator, Lena West stared at the briefing screen, the faces of her fellow commanders filling the screen. They had won battles, but now the universe had begun to push back. "We've hit them hard," Lena said, standing at the front of the room. "But they've been watching us. Now they're coming for us all at once. We need to be ready. If they want to make this a war for the stars, then that's exactly what they're going to get." General Monroe, standing beside Lena, nodded. "This is our moment. Humanity is no longer hiding. The universe has shaken us, but it has also shown us something. They fear us, and that fear is their greatest weakness." The Terran fleets mobilized. Ships equipped with advanced weapons prepared for battle, and troops began to train for what was to come. The call for Earth's survival had become a call for vengeance, a message that would be heard across the galaxy. But as Earth geared up for war, the Stellan Confederacy, a group of neutral planets, sent a peace delegation to Earth. Their leaders, alarmed by the sudden shift in power, sought to find common ground before the inevitable war began. Lena met with the delegates in the UN's central chamber. Their leader, Ambassador Solana, spoke urgently. "You have to understand, Terran Command, the galaxy is too fractured now. Every empire, every species is preparing to fight you. They see you as a threat to everything they've built. And what do you expect us to do?" Lena replied, her voice tight with frustration. "We didn't ask for this. We fought to survive, to protect our people. We've been left alone for centuries. Now we're being attacked from all sides." Ambassador Solana took a deep breath. "We don't want war, but if it's inevitable, you will need allies. We may not be powerful enough to stop this conflict, but we can help you build a coalition, one that will make your enemies think twice before they act." Lena paused, considering her options. "We don't have time for that. If we wait, they'll come for us in full force. I'll reach out to the Confederacy once the war has begun." And just as Lena finished her conversation, the sky above Earth turned dark. Hundreds of alien fleets, led by the combined forces of the Kreth, Zelthor, and Thraxi, entered orbit. They came not to negotiate, but to destroy. The battle began at the first strike. Earth's fleets rose like a storm. The Vindicator led the charge, its powerful cannons lighting up the void as humanity's warships clashed with the oncoming tide of alien aggression. The space around Earth became a chaotic battlefield, filled with plasma fire, laser beams, and ship debris. Humanity had proven itself once before, but now it was fighting for everything, its place in the galaxy, its right to exist, and its very survival. But the true test had come. Humanity's heart of steel beat louder than ever. It had survived the first war, but could it survive the wrath of the galaxy? As the enemy fleet surrounded Earth, the universe watched, and what it saw was humanity, a species once thought weak, now standing tall and unbroken in the face of the galaxy's greatest powers. Humanity's ultimate victory, the stars above Earth were no longer quiet. The galaxy had stirred, and the battle for the future of the universe was now raging in full force. Humanity's fleet, battered but resolute, stood strong against the overwhelming might of the galaxy's greatest empires. The Kreth, Thraxi, and countless other species had united under a single banner. Their goal clear: crush humanity before it could become the unstoppable force it was destined to be. But Earth had no intention of surrendering. No matter how many times it had been knocked down, humanity had always risen, stronger and more determined than before. It was their greatest strength, their greatest weapon. Inside the heart of the Terran Command, General Monroe stood before his commanders. His face was grim, yet filled with unwavering resolve. "We've been backed into a corner, but there's one thing they don't understand. We don't stop. Not now, not ever." Lena West, standing by his side, nodded. She had seen Earth's warriors fight for their survival and rise to power. Now, she knew the universe would see humanity fight for its future. "Everything we've built has led to this moment," Lena said, her voice filled with purpose. "We've survived their attacks, and now it's time to make them understand. We will fight until the last ship is flying, and then we'll fight until the last breath." The battle ahead would be humanity's ultimate test, with all of Earth's allies and enemies converging on their homeworld. Humanity had no choice but to make its stand. The alien forces, hundreds of ships strong, surrounded Earth in an imposing ring. They came from every corner of the galaxy, their advanced technology and unmatched numbers overwhelming. The last remnants of the Kreth fleet were there, their once feared ships now joined by others, ready to crush Earth in one final blow. But Earth wasn't ready to fall. As the Terran fleet assembled in defense, Lena stood on the bridge of the HTS Vindicator, watching the galaxy's greatest war unfold. The ship had become the symbol of humanity's strength, its unyielding resolve to survive. Status report. Lena called. Shields at 80%. Main cannon ready for fire, reported Commander Vargas. Enemy fleet preparing to strike. They've already launched a volley of energy missiles. Lena took a deep breath, her fingers gripping the command console. Hold your ground. We're not going to make this easy for them. Fire at will. The battle began in earnest. Waves of enemy ships collided with humanity's defenses. The space around Earth became a maelstrom of explosions, laser fire, and twisted metal. Terran warships flew in formation, dodging enemy fire and retaliating with precision. Every shot counted, but the enemy wasn't done. The Kreth flagship, the last bastion of their once proud empire, led the charge. It was the largest ship ever built, a monstrosity that seemed to eclipse the stars themselves. It fired relentlessly, breaking through Earth's outer defenses, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. "This is it," General Monroe said, his voice heavy with the weight of their final stand. "They're bringing everything they've got, but so are we." Lena's eyes narrowed. All ships target the Kreth flagship. If we take it down, their forces will crumble. The Terran fleet focused their fire on the Kreth flagship. It was a gamble, the most dangerous move humanity had ever made, but it was their best chance to win. The Vindicator fired its main cannon, a beam of energy so powerful it tore through the enemy's shields and struck the flagship dead center. The explosion sent a shockwave across the battlefield, scattering the Kreth ships in all directions. But even in victory, the battle was far from over. The enemy still outnumbered humanity, and the Zarkar had arrived with reinforcements. The final hours of the war began, and it seemed as though humanity might fall after all, just as the tide seemed to turn against them. Lena made a bold decision. Activate Project Ironheart. A wave of energy shot from Earth's core, cascading outward like a pulse of light. It was the last weapon humanity had, the culmination of their knowledge, their fears, and their will to survive. The Ironheart was a beacon of power, built from the remnants of alien technology and humanity's ingenuity. It didn't just fire. A weapon, it altered the very fabric of space around it. Ships from both sides were caught in the wave, disorienting their systems, scrambling their communications, and turning the tide of the battle. The Zarkar, the Kreth, and the Thraxio of them faltered. Their ships froze in place, unable to function. The Terran fleet, now with the upper hand, took advantage of the chaos. Every enemy ship was either disabled or destroyed. The battlefield went silent. Lena looked up at the view of Earth. The sky was clear. The war, at last, was over. Humanity had won. The galaxy had witnessed humanity's rise. They had tried to break Earth's will, but they had failed. Earth had been tested by fire, and it had emerged stronger, fiercer, and more united than ever before. The Zarkar and their allies, their pride shattered, were forced to retreat once and for all. Earth's reputation was solidified. No longer a weak, isolated species, Humanity was now the most feared force in the universe. As the Terran fleet returned home, Lena and General Monroe stood side by side. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy, and now no one would ever forget the name of Earth, the home of the most terrifying warriors the universe had ever known.